Welcome to the Story Lab. Today we are going to write a story for the Star Wars universe once more. A story with an important purpose though. As you will know, there is a debate among Star Wars fans, whether or not the sequels should be removed from the official canon or not. So, why not make a story that does both? Envision a Junction story for Star Wars, where a single decision with two outcomes of equal value may lead either to the sequels, or to a new version of the New Republic timeline, which could be told in new stories. That is exactly what we are going to do today. What is the idea? The story shall lead to a point where a decision must be made. One outcome of this decision must clearly lead to the already known sequel trilogy, while the other leads to a new timeline that could certainly not be the sequels. Both decisions should be equally valid, thus both could happen at that time in the saga, and thus both outcomes are valid continuations of the saga. If someone wanted to produce it, both outcomes could be filmed and shown in a random pattern. Where or when shall this story happen? There are several aspects to consider. It should be after the Battle of Endor. It should fit into the new series that are currently being developed. The Force should fundamentally have something to do with it. The only current show that has the kind of grandeur and fundamental Force-relatedness that we want is Ahsoka, thus the Junction story shall be part of an Ahsoka Season 2. Let's think about that all-important decision that is the central point of this story. The decision maker does not need to be someone wise or particularly impactful, because both decisions should be equally valid anyways. So she cannot destroy the galaxy with one action. The decision should be impactful to the story wherein it is told. While the decision itself shall be simple, A or B, the circumstances can be dire and should feel like something that has the potential of changing the history of the galaxy forever. The decision maker should not be so beloved. For him or her to make the decision will lead to even more fans walking away from Star Wars. Luckily, there is one character in Ahsoka who is already questioned for her impactful decision-making, Sabine Wren. With those ideas lined up, let's put our ingredients together. A Ahsoka Season 2 story. A Force-related big decision coming up that in its essence is simple though, A or B. Sabine will make the decision. Both outcomes should be equally valid, one leading to the sequels, one to a new timeline. The decision is also important for the story at hand. It should be clear to the viewer what the outcome of the decisions might be. Let's see what the lab came up with, the Star Wars Junction story. At the end of Ahsoka Season 1 we saw Baylan's skull standing near an ancient Force spirit ruin to search for something that would give him power to stop the cycle of good and bad in the galaxy. As we learn now at the start of Season 2, he succeeded. However, it didn't turn out as he might have imagined. Sleeping under these rocks on Peridea was an ancient Force beast capable of destroying the entire galaxy, Abeloth. Baylan thought he could control it, but he was wrong. Abeloth immediately consumes him and starts to free itself from its stony prison. Ahsoka and Sabine, who are on Peridea, see the coming danger and rush to investigate. They discover the monster and realize that it must be stopped before it can find a way to reach the main galaxy. They find out that to stop the beast, all three aspects of the Force, light side, dark side, and balance, need to be represented by a powerful avatar, and all of them must work together to once more bind the creature. Luckily, two such avatars were already available, Ahsoka, being closely related to the sister as an avatar of the light, and Anakin's Force ghost as an avatar of the balance. What they need to find is an avatar that can represent the dark side, while also being okay with working with them. They try to convince Baylan's student Shin to be the last avatar, but she is not strong enough with the dark side. Thus, they need to find someone else. Ahsoka remembers a rumor that she heard back in the main galaxy, that there was a man, who is said to be a clone of none other than Palpatine. If they were to find the man, he would certainly count as an avatar of evil. Thanks to the Purgil, they return to the main galaxy, and indeed find the man they were looking for, only he doesn't seem to be like Palpatine at all. The man in question is a nice young man living a simple life on a lonely planet with his wife. The two are discussing to have a baby, and according to the man, he does not have any force powers at all. Given the situation, Ahsoka feels the need to pressure the man further until he reveals that he is indeed a clone of Palpatine, a flawed one though, as he somehow inherited a conscience. He explains that he pretended to be a failure without force powers so that he would be sent away. He fears that, should he ever use his powers, that would allow Palpatine's spirit to return to life. Ahsoka and Sabine are in a tough spot now. They know that Abeloth must be stopped as soon as possible, but they do not want to ask the nice man to sacrifice his integrity and maybe bring back Palpatine. But the clone understands that Abeloth would be a bigger threat to the galaxy and thus agrees to come along. His wife is less than happy about this. Ahsoka promises her to guard her husband with all the Jedi's will, so that he can return to her. Then they leave for the other galaxy. On the journey back to Peridea, the clone takes Sabine to the side for a moment. He explains that he knows more about the situation than he had revealed until now. The man knew that even if they were able to stop Abeloth, the creature would be able to lash out at least once, killing the Force users. The clone tells Sabine that she would have a millisecond to save either Ahsoka or him. Sabine doesn't like where this is going, but is even more conflicted when the clone asks her to let him be the one to die. The clone still believes that using his force powers would immediately bring back Palpatine, but maybe his death would stop the process, saving the galaxy from another tyranny by the Sith. Of course, Sabine is not okay with that. Sabine is especially conflicted as she knows that allowing the clone to die would mean that Ahsoka would break her promise towards the wife. Sabine knows that Ahsoka would gladly give her life for the man. On the other hand, allowing Palpatine to return would not be a good idea, and Sabine would oppose the wishes of the clone if she saved him instead. Sabine has not yet decided what to do when they reach Peridea and face the creature. Ahsoka, the clone and Anakin's Force ghosts start binding Abeloth again, with Sabine standing behind, not knowing what is the right thing to do. Finally, she does make a decision. This is the moment of the junction in the story. If Sabine saves the clone, Ahsoka dies in peace, knowing she kept her promise. Though it is a sad death, foreshadowing the disappearance of the Jedi that will follow, Sabine is certain she has done the right thing. Meanwhile, somewhere in the unknown regions on the world of Exegol, Palpatine is indeed reborn. The clone is somewhat distraught, but accepts Sabine's decision as she tells him that she believes doing the right thing would never lead to the end of the world. She then returns the clone to his wife. The man agrees that even if his survival were to have caused Palpatine's return, he would also try to be instrumental in stopping him once more. And he would be, because of course, he is the father of Rey. If Sabine saves Ahsoka though, the clone will be hit and dies in front of the two women. With his dying words he confirms that Sabine has acted upon his explicit wishes, and that he was not dying in vain. In fact, he can feel, as he slips into the cosmic force, that Palpatine's spirit is now prevented from ever returning to the world of the living again. Sabine and Ahsoka return to the galaxy once more, and tell their story to the New Republic. Consequently, Luke Skywalker decides that it is time to more concretely try to rebuild the Jedi Order. The Senate agrees and grants him the rights to build a Jedi temple, and with the help of Ahsoka train recruits, starting with Sabine, Ezra, and others. So those would be the two choices and their consequences. Which road would you have taken? Let's summarize what we saw here. To stop a powerful Force entity, a dark side force user is needed. A clone of none other than Palpatine is found and decides to help. Either Ahsoka or the clone can be saved, the other is doomed to die. The clone asks that he be allowed to die, as he believes him living might lead to the return of Palpatine. Sabine makes a choice, who to save. If she saves the clone, the sequels happen, i.e. Palpatine returns, but is defeated by Rey, the clone's daughter. If she chooses to save Ahsoka though, a new storyline begins, where the Jedi Order is founded anew by Luke Skywalker. An interesting Junction story for sure. Please remember that everything presented here is simply the results of an experiment. No part of this presentation is intended as a correction of an existing story or claims to be the real story. The selection or omission of any parts of the source material is not to be understood as commentary, positive or negative, on the original productions. These are simply thoughts and experiments based on existing material, and none of it could be created without the work of all those involved in creating the original works. As with any scientific result, you may utilize any of the story ideas that resulted from these experiments for your own experiments or production, while citing this experiment as its source. It is now closing time for our lab. The experimenters will go on a bit of a hiatus now. But don't worry, new experiments are being conducted already. Goodbye until next time.